Chelsea Cook has been the design lead of content strategy at Canva since 2019. During this time, she has seen Canva develop into the huge business success it is today. Through leading multiple teams towards end goals during projects, to creating and leading new features to allow for more diversity and direct feedback from consumer to business. Through ensuring all those collaborating are working towards the same end goal, keeping a project on track and keeping within the values and identity of the brand. Chelsea's day to day, when she doesn't have back to back to back meetings, consists of leading strategies for the creative content library, networking across multidisciplinary teams, and assisting teams with her expertise of creating the perfect presentation pitch. I was lucky enough to sit down with Chelsea as she explains how she tackled creating diversity in Canva, her creative process during this time, and highlights the importance of collaboration in her line of work.
But there was a diversity strategy at Canva. So we had a lot of feedback through social media, especially Twitter, about the lack of diversity in our library and the lack of diversity in our content, so our templates and our photos. So we decided to tackle it head on with a really big budget and some really big focuses around making sure that diverse content was displayed and represented in our library, but it was also created by the people that stand for that type of that subject and that issue. So we collaborated with a lot of artists all over the world, created specialty content, making sure that they felt like they could be seen and they could be represented in the product. And then we did a lot of product improvements as well. So we introduced specific search filters. We introduced search feedback, so people could give us live feedback on what they would like to see or what they're not seeing in the library. And we also introduced a lot of search data. So we tore apart our library about what are our search gaps, what are we representing, what are we not representing, what can we move forward in, what can we do better in. And then the product improvements and the data improvements have just become a standard in what we do moving forward. Everything should start with pulling apart your brief or your idea. So making sure you're understanding it right, you're asking the right questions, you're thinking about the right questions to answer with the work, researching. So looking at your competitors, what's in the market already, where are there gaps in the market that you could potentially fill with your project to get it more awareness, more impact? What's the audience that you want it to impact and that you're designing for? That's really important. What's the point that you want to get across and how do you do that in the right way? You would normally probably develop that into a return pitch or a return brief. Then I would really jump into getting your ideas down, sketching it first, then taking it to the computer or taking it to your iPad or your camera to take some photos, then pulling together your final pitch, pitching that, or your final drafts, getting sign-offs, getting feedback as well from your peers or from your client. And then we would go through a really, really detailed proofing process, making sure everything's perfect. And then we'd work with printers or whoever's producing the work or publishing the work to make sure that it looks amazing when it goes live. This day and age, collaboration has to be your starting point. I don't think there's any way you can get around a job without collaborating, and whether that be through peer feedback or through ideation, getting different ideas. That working with different people means you get to see through their eyes and through their lens and through their experiences, and that should inform how you design and how you approach a job. And it also offers you a different perspective on how people are going to receive the work, a different perspective on the audience that you're designing for. If you're collaborating, you get to hone in on everyone's expertise and pull them all together for a full picture.
Chelsea has been a graphic designer for over 10 years, and during this time, she has seen the design industry shift from traditional design to the innovative and highly technological digital design we see today. Chelsea says, despite the challenges that can arise with the increase in digital media, there are even more opportunities, including accessibility for those less fortunate.
10-15 years ago when I started, there were like, an iPad was really expensive. No one had them. Laptops were slow and expensive as well. I think it's it's broadened horizons for a lot of people, I would say. Your possibilities are larger. The technology that plugs in to digital design and digital spaces is endless. I think the creativity, once you learn coding or you learn how to design for screens, the creativity within that space as well is unlimited. So we're just going to see newer things every month, every day come out. The speed at which things develop and trends develop and technologies develop is so much faster than it ever used to be. We make sure that we design for example, we make sure our product works amazingly on mobile, because the majority of the market in Africa they're like 90% mobile users. I think we do a great job, but there's always improvements to be made and things to do to make sure that our design tool is accessible for everyone. And when we talk about accessibility internally as well, we talk about how does a deaf person use Canva? How does a blind person use Canva? I think we've come a long way in the industry in the last few years, but I still think there's a big way to go. Making sure you're designing ethically is probably the biggest challenge coming up for everyone. You're using your technology in an ethical way and a responsible way. You're designing responsibly, so thinking about how your content is received by the world. And I think just in general as well, making sure that content is or the design is approachable for everyone, no matter what situation they're in. I think as the world gets more digital, we are going to have the people that aren't as fortunate fall off the train, and we need to make sure that we are providing ways that they can design as well. In the industry, if you want to grab a job as a young designer, you're going to have to prove that you can work with different people, you can collaborate, be multidisciplinary, and you're open to those types of opportunities. As a designer, you're going to need to be able to design moving, so video, animation, that type of skills you're going to have some knowledge of. But being able to work with artificial intelligence and know what's going on in that world, knowing how to use it to your advantage, speed up efficiencies, create things that have never been created before, use it responsibly, that's going to be a really big turning point for the industry.
Throughout talking to Chelsea, I have realised how much consumer participation has shifted the design industry. In modern society, consumers are a lot more vocal about their feedback regarding social issues. Technology has completely shifted the way designers create content and the way consumers receive content. Industries such as Canva have created a digital collaborative connection between business and consumer, where customers feel like their opinions and feedback are being seen, heard, and taken into consideration by designers, so much so that consumers can even create their own content, all from the comfort of their devices. Finally, I asked Chelsea what she would do with our class's creative brief.
One project that I always have really loved and really go back to, and they basically painted a whole side of a building black, and then there was a question asked in white paint, and there was a white line for you to write your answer, and you could go write on it in chalk or Posca pen or whatever, and it was what's your dream for the future, and it encouraged the community or people walking past to go out and physically fill it out, and it was really cool to see the difference of answers, or the difference in what's important to people, the difference in scales of their dreams. Some people it might be owning a home, some people it might be moving to another country, some people it might be changing the world. And I thought that was really cool. You get to include everyone, everyone feels like they're heard and they're seen. Imagining you're at the uni, there's a digital whiteboard that spans the whole wall of the library, right? The external wall of the library, and everyone that walked past, it was, what's your dream for tomorrow? Or what's your dream for your children? That type of thing would be really cool. So you get to see all walks of life, everyone gets involved, but also no one feels like there's pressure. It's an open space where everyone's heard.